Hey, what's up guys, it's TechSumer talking to you here. And in today's video, I want to talk about the iPhone 13 Pro Max against the iPhone 14 Pro Max in 2023. Is it worth it to buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max over the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Or is it worth it to spend the extra money, get the iPhone 14 Pro Max instead of the iPhone 13 Pro Max? Of course, this is a very difficult choice, and I made this video when the iPhone 14 Pro Max came in 2022, around the September timeline. Now, again, we got this choice and this comparison. Which phone should you buy? Now, in 2023, after 7 months of the iPhone 14 Pro Max has come out, which iPhone should you still buy? Should you go for the still most premium and most expensive iPhone available, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, or for last year's model, the iPhone 13 Pro Max? Well, in today's video, I will answer all of your questions. I will compare every single spec and detail about these two phones. So do not forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for all your support. Let's get started. So, the iPhone 13 Pro Max against the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 Pro Max right now is a little bit cheaper, but it's not as good. The iPhone 13 Pro Max came in 2021 and it features about the same design as the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 14. So it's the mid-cycle between the first and last iPhone with this squared off design. The iPhone 13 Pro Max features the same stainless steel bezels as the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the same lightning port, the same frosted glass back, the same 6.7-inch display, and the only difference you will notice on the hardware of these two phones is the bigger camera bump on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and in my opinion, if you do have the keen eye, you will notice the notch. If you don't notice those things, then I'm pretty sure you won't notice the big differences between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 13 Pro Max. Visual differences, should I say. Because I do believe that dynamic island is certainly something that you will get used to and you will love. It's a software feature, I know. Of course, it's an hardware change, but after a while you won't notice that much. But in terms of design, these two phones feel the same on the hand. They are about the same thickness, the same size. The camera bump, they are big on both, like it's huge. On the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's really big, like you can see here, while on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's a little bit smaller, but they are both big. They both rock on the table. So yeah, they feel similar, they are similar, they weigh about the same, so you cannot interchange cases though. The same case that you can use on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you cannot use on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, so if you are thinking of upgrading, think that you will lose all of access to the cases of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Unless you cut out some type of corner on the camera bump, of the cases won't fit. Then I think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max has the SIM tray slot. For you there Americans, you will have a SIM tray, so you'll have a SIM card tray available, while on the iPhone 14s it was the first iPhone to kill the SIM tray. Then I think that the most noticeable difference is the two colors available, my two favorite colors available on these two phones. On the iPhone 13 series, the 13 Pro Max was on the Sierra Blue, amazing color, very beautiful, and on the iPhone 14 Pro Max it was the matte black. All of this makes for only two big differences between these two phones, dynamic island and the camera bump, where the cameras reside. Other than that, speakers, I think microphones, they are very comparable between each other. They are better, of course, on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but do not justify an upgrade. But I do believe that the iPhone 13 Pro Max still resides with tons of value, because the iPhone 13 Pro Max can offer the same experience of the iPhone 14 Pro Max for about 80% of the price, and you will get 90% of the stuff. And if you can find this iPhone refurbished, it's even cheaper, so around 30 to 35% cheaper than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You can get it for around $800 right now, refurbished, which the iPhone 14 Pro Max starts at $1,100. So $300 of a difference, in my opinion, justifies going for the iPhone 13 Pro Max if you don't really care about cameras or software features, because that's where the iPhone 14 Pro Max lies the value. In the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you have dynamic island. Dynamic island is insane. The hardware here is not that special. The screen is better, has better contrast ratio, has better colors, it's brighter, 2000 nits brighter, while the iPhone 11 Pro Max is only 1200 nits. The HDR here looks a little bit better, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max doesn't overheat while using very high color and high intensive tasks on the iPhone while watching videos, playing games. While the iPhone 13 Pro Max dims down the display when you are playing games, and that makes the experience not that great because you will end up having your display pretty dim. and you won't be able to see anything while playing very high intensive games, even if your iPhone has a very powerful processor like the A15 found on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. While the iPhone 14 Pro Max has solved almost all of these issues and you don't have any problem playing games like browsing the web, watching videos, your screen won't dim, it won't get hot, and so the A16 here either is more powerful and a bit more efficient. No difference on the OS, moving around, opening apps, nothing. These two phones feature promotion here is about the same, but the only difference would be this promotion can only ramp down to 10 Hz, so you don't have the always on display, while the iPhone 14 Pro Max can ramp down to 1 Hz instead of the 10, then you can enable always on display. I don't have always on display enabled on my iPhone 14 Pro Max because I don't need it. This iPhone has always on display, but I don't turn it on, while this iPhone doesn't have it and I don't miss it. So I think that the always on display is kind of a gimmick. Do not upgrade your iPhone 13 Pro Max over to an iPhone 14 Pro Max, or even do not decide to buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max over the iPhone 13 Pro Max, those $300 of a difference that I spoke before, just because of the always on display. No, and even on the display in general, this display will be more than enough for you. I think 99% of people will enjoy this display as much as they would the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Maybe that 1% that really loves tech would appreciate the dynamic island, which after a while you get used to. You get used to having your music there, your timers, your calls, AirDrop, Siri, battery life for AirPods. All of these things make your experience with dynamic island unforgettable. And after a while, you will enjoy having it over the notch that you have on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is just that space. I don't really enjoy it. I don't really care about it. I don't think it's a pretty good thing. I think that dynamic island is a way better choice. So after a while, I think you will end up going for the iPhone 14 Pro Max if you enjoy dynamic island. If you don't enjoy it, the iPhone 13 Pro Max will definitely offer you the same display experience as the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Then we have battery life. Battery life on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, if it has 100% of battery health, it will be better than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The iPhone 14 Pro Max at the beginning with 100% battery health had a little bit less battery capacity than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. This is not because of physical batteries, it isn't. It's because the display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a little bit more bright and the CPU is a little bit more power hungry. So after a while, even if you turn off always on display, the battery life won't be as good. But now you have to remember that the iPhone 13 Pro Max that you will buy refurbished or used won't have 100% of battery health. In that case, I don't think you will get the same amount of battery life as the iPhone 14 Pro Max if you buy a new. So that's something you gotta analyze. Before you buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max refurbished or used, even I think it works better if it's used, go check the battery health on that iPhone. If it's 90% above, then go for it and buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max. But if it's below 90%, I do think it's worth it, or to spend the extra money and buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max, or at least try to find other iPhone 13 Pro Maxes, because the battery life here is really good, but only if you have it like over 85 to 90%. Lower than that, it's only a one-day phone for you professionals, and for you normal people, it will last you throughout the whole day for sure, but that's the iPhone 14 Pro Max also. Like, if you are not using your phone, if you are not a power user, do not even worry about battery life. But if you are a power user, then try to find the good balance between these two phones. If you can get refurbished with a good battery, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the best choice. But if you cannot get it with a good battery, then for sure a new iPhone 14 Pro Max should be for you. And I think that a new iPhone should be for you. Because if you are a professional, a newer phone is always better. It doesn't have any marks, any scratches. It's not used. And I think you will end up enjoying that phone more if it's new. And of course, because you are a professional, you can pay it off after a while. If you are a normal consumer, I do believe that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is still the better choice. It's 90% of this iPhone can do, and it's cheaper, $300 cheaper to be precise. So I think that without talking about the next topic, which is the cameras, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the clear winner in 2023. You will be able to find it cheaper, and it's about the 90% of the experience you will get on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But there are two crucial features before I talk about the cameras. Crash detection, that your iPhone 14 Pro Max can detect a crash if you are into one, and if that's a big feature for you, go for the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And the no data available calling. So you can get emergency calling on your iPhone 14 Pro Max. Even if you are away from the towers, you will be able to make some phone calls, send some messages. If you are out on the wild, this iPhone could save your life. That's the satellite calling, I think. So yeah, if those two things you value for much, the iPhone 14 Pro Max don't have them, so go for the iPhone 14 Pro Max in that case. So let's talk about the cameras now. These two phones do have the same camera system, about the same. They do have 3 cameras, a telephoto, a main camera, and an ultra-wide camera. This one also have a telephoto, ultra-wide camera, and a main camera. This one has a 3-camera 12 megapixel system, while this one has a 48 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. I think that the 3 cameras are way better here. The 48 megapixel sensor here is so much better. It's the biggest jump in camera quality I've ever seen on an iPhone, ever. The 48 megapixel sensor on the iPhone 14 Pro Max has proven me wrong for a long time. The photos that come out of this phone are insanely crispy, detailed, very good looking, can get you that natural bokeh because it's a bigger sensor, that gets you that natural bokeh that looks incredible, mirroring the DSLRs and mirrorless cameras of their lives. And the iPhone 13 Pro Max just has that phony look to the photos. The video though, it's where it shines the most, I think. With this bigger sensor, you can get better video. Especially cinematic mode, because now cinematic mode is usable on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You can shoot it on 4K, 30 frames per second, which on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is only available at 1080p at 30 frames per second. This video is being shot on the iPhone 14 Pro Max with 4K at 30 frames per second. So as you can see, it looks very good. And on my older videos that you can check it out, the cinematic mode on the iPhone 13 Pro Max wasn't as good. And even, you can go check it out, my last video or my last 2 videos that were filmed on my other set. It's more clear because it has more things on the back and you can distinguish the background blur even better. Here is a plain slate background, so it's more difficult to understand how good cinematic mode looks, but as you can see, looks pretty great. So I do believe that in terms of video, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is a clear loser against the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The 13 Pro Max has worst video in every category, the front camera, the back camera, every single camera here has worst video. Then you have the iPhone 14 Pro Max's biggest difference over the iPhone 13 Pro Max, that's stabilization. Stabilization here is way better because of the stabilization mode. You can run around, you can do everything, and the phone just stabilizes your footage. It's like a gimbal. It's insane how good it works. Then you have the front cameras. This one has autofocus, so you can focus your face, you can move it around, it's easier to vlog on. This one doesn't have autofocus, it's the same focus on your face, so if you want to vlog with your front camera, it's not the best thing. Then you have the photo quality, which is probably the biggest thing you are asking for. Which photo quality is better? The iPhone 14 Pro Max, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Almost every shot, I do prefer the iPhone 14 Pro Max because the camera is more crispy, more natural, the colors look better, and with the RAW mode activated, it's just insane, the photos you can take with this iPhone 14 Pro Max. The 48 megapixel sensor was truly an innovation on the iPhone. Then, if you go for the ultra-wide and telephoto, it's the same story. The ultra-wide here is more confident, takes better photos, it gets more light because it's a bigger sensor. They are more on par with the main sensor of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The telephoto is the same story, better photos, better light, better low light performance, just like the other cameras have. Low light on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is definitely better, doesn't need to have as much seconds on night mode, so the photos are less processed, as I can say. Other than that, I do believe that these two phones' cameras are really good. If you are not really care about cameras, then you will enjoy the iPhone 13 Pro Max's cameras as much as you will the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but if you are a camera nerd, then definitely the iPhone 14 Pro Max is for you. But I think that these two camera systems are still one of the best on the market, so if you decide to save $300 and still keep your iPhone 13 Pro Max or buy the iPhone 13 Pro Max for $800, I do believe you will be set with an amazing camera system for the next few years. So it's your choice. Do you want the best camera system available on the iPhone or do you want the second best? Pretty good alternatives, I gotta say. So I do think that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is still the better value over the iPhone 14 Pro Max because it's the refurbished model. It's the older model. It's about the same 90% performance that you can get on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the same 90% performance of the camera, 85, the same battery life, the same design, the same software support. So if you do have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I do think you should keep it. And if you are looking for a phone in 2023, if you don't really care about the cameras or dynamic island, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the better choice. Get it on this amazing Sierra Blue. You will not regret it. What do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments down below. Which phone would you choose? The A15, iPhone 13 Pro Max, the A16, iPhone 14 Pro Max. Let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel. This has been Tech Smart talking to you here. Bye-bye.